Two men leave the same bar at the same night, having had the same amount to drink. Same decision made in their same impaired state, to get behind the wheels instead of calling someone. Same drive home along the streets they've driven 100 times sober. One of them gets home, he parks badly in his driveway, goes inside and falls asleep on the couch with his shoes still on. The other one, 4 minutes earlier on a different street, hits a child crossing the road. Now, the law is about to treat these two men as though they did completely different things. The first man, if he's caught, gets a fine and a temporary suspension, an inconvenience, a story he'll tell later as the time he was an idiot in his 20s. The second man, on the other hand, goes to a prison. He carries this for the rest of his life. There is no version of his future that doesn't have this in it. But take a step back for a second. What did either of them actually do? They made the exact same choice, in the exact same state of mind, with the exact same information available to them the moment they turned the key. The only difference between a man who falls asleep on his couch and a man who goes to prison was a child crossing a road at one specific second. Neither of them could have predicted or controlled. So what exactly are we punishing here? The choice or the outcome the choice happened to collide with? Philosophers have a name for this. Bernard Williams called it moral luck in 1976. Thomas Nagel arrived at almost the identical idea the same year, working independently, which usually means they both noticed something that had been sitting in plain sight the whole time, waiting for someone to say it out loud. And once you see it, you start seeing it everywhere. Take the legal system itself. Attempted murder and murder, in terms of what the person actually did, are identical. Same intent, same planning, same finger on the same trigger. The only variable that separates a 10-year sentence from a life sentence is whether the bullet happened to miss. The legal system knows this. It has no real defense for it beyond results matter to society, which is a polite way of saying, yes, we are aware we are punishing the outcome, not the act, and we are going to keep doing it anyway because we don't have a better alternative. It's not just the courtroom. It's everywhere ordinary people make ordinary judgments. Your friend sends a text while driving, gets home fine, you roll your eyes at them maybe, but it's a non-event. A bad habit, mildly irresponsible. Another person sends a text while driving and causes an accident. Now they are the person who almost killed someone. A different category of human being entirely, in everyone's eyes, including eventually their own. It's the same impulse, the same 3 seconds of not looking up, the same bet that nothing would happen in that gap. The only thing that separated those two people was whether the world happened to be paying attention at that exact moment. And here is where it gets uncomfortable, because you do this to yourself too. The risk you took that worked out, you call it calculated risk, confident instincts paying off, a story you tell at dinner parties as proof you know what you're doing. The identical risk made the same way for the same reasons that didn't work out. You call that a mistake. You should have known better. You play it at 1 a.m. wondering what's wrong with you. Same decision-making process, opposite verdicts delivered by the same judge about the same kind of person, based entirely on how it happened to land. So if outcomes are mostly lucky and judgment is mostly built on outcomes, then the entire moral structure most people live inside, the one assigning guilt, pride, shame and self-worth, is partly built on something that has nothing to do with character at all. That's not a comfortable thing to sit with. So here are two ways people generally try to sit with it. The first option is to throw out outcome-based judgment entirely and judge purely by intention. Clean in theory, but almost impossible in practice, because intention can't actually be verified by anyone outside your own head. Outcomes are the only thing that rest of the world can actually see and respond to. A society that tried to ignore results completely would have no way to function. It would have nothing left to point at. The second option, the one that's actually livable, is to accept that judgment will always be partially irrational and turn that awareness specifically on yourself. The next time something goes wrong and the guilt arrives, ask Williams' question, was this really about what I chose, or about where the dice happened to land that day? The next time something goes right and the pride arrives, ask it again. You're probably not responsible for your worst outcomes as your guilt insists you are. and you're probably not as deserving for your best outcomes as your pride insists you are. Somewhere between those two distortions is the actual you, the one making choices in the dark, same as everyone else, not smarter than the people who got unlucky, not weaker than the people who got lucky, just waiting like everyone else to find out which way it lands. Go back to two drivers for a second. What if that night they'd swapped places? Same bar, same drinks, same decision, just a different street, a different 4 minutes, a different child crossing a different road at a different second. Nothing about either man would have changed, only the story the world would go on to tell about who they were.